Thank you for the warm introduction. And I'm delighted to be here, especially because Dr. Peter Rossett is also here. Uh, I'm such a great admirer of his work. So thank you, Monla, for inviting me. I would like to share my presentation of the work that we are doing in Andhra Pradesh, India.
Okay, cool.
I hope the presentation is visible, Professor Yapa.
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah, it's visible.
Okay.
You can continue. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Monla. I'll be talking about the experience in Andhra Pradesh. Uh, our vision is that by 2031, all 8 million farmers and farm workers in our state should transform to natural farming. I'm heading the government organization called Raitu Sadhikara Samastha. That means Farmers Empowerment Corporation. It's meant for welfare of promoting the welfare of farmers. So this is Andhra Pradesh. This is India. We are in the southern part. We have very long coast, and this part, the southern part of the state, is a semi-arid rain-fed area. And in our state, agriculture is very important because 62% of the population is employed in agriculture-related activities. We have 8 million hectares of cropped area. So we have 8 million farmer cultivators, 67%, and landless farm workers. It may also be noted that 86% of our farmers are small farmers. That means having a holding of less than 2 hectares. Our state population is 54 million. We have a diversified cropping system and a major producer of fruits, eggs, and aquaculture. Now, in our state, why did we decide to go for why did we take a decision to go for natural farming? It is also formally called as the zero budget natural farming. We have now changed the name to community managed natural farming to reflect the fact that it is farmer centric. Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, audible.
Okay. So the reason why the state went into natural farming was, and this is something which happens across the country.
Hello.
We have farmers' distress, which is on account of. Can I request everyone to kindly mute?
Can you please mute your mics? Can you please mute your mic?
Hi. Happy birthday.
Can you please mute your mics?
Yeah. So we have multiple emergencies. On the one hand, farmers' distress is increasing. Farming has become unviable because ever-increasing costs of external inputs like seeds, chemical fertilizers, synthetic pesticides. The weather, extreme weather events have increased. We have water depletion has been very high. So therefore, the bore wells are drying up. And then we have very special problems of tenants, and there is a lot of migration. So you have farmers' distress, which is increasing. Secondly, the consumer food plate. We don't know what is the food that we are eating. Food is full of chemical residues. There are also metal contamination in grains. And more important is that the food we're eating today has lost a very significant portion of nutrients that were there, say, 50 years ago before this chemical agriculture. So, this lack of micronutrients, trace minerals, is also giving rise to a wide range of health problems. So, therefore, you have a crisis as a consumer, you have a crisis. Then, as a farmer, there is a livelihoods crisis. But beyond these two, we also have a environmental crisis. There is soil degradation. We are losing soil organic matter at a very high pace, unsustainable. There is water stress, and global warming is on the rise, and decreased biodiversity, water and air pollution. So, therefore, there are multiple emergencies which are impacting both farmers and citizens. Uh, there's a lot of disturbance, please.
Can you please can you please mute your mics, please?
I think even the admins have to mute their mics because a lot of that background noise is coming.
Yeah.
The admin can actually mute everyone.
Yes, please. So now, as I mentioned, there are multiple emergencies. But in this slide, I just want to explain that the way we are doing agriculture and the way we are consuming, processing food, consuming food, wasting food is also responsible for the climate crisis. So both production, processing, consumption, food waste. So the entire food system accounts for 45 to 53% of the greenhouse gases. So that is the vicious cycle. So we ourselves are creating conditions where we are the victims. And this soil emergency, the way that we have been managing land, has led to uh, loss of soil organic matter and therefore the release of greenhouse gases. It is deforestation, forest fires, ploughing, keeping the lands fallow, overgrazing, excess irrigation, and over the last 50, 60 years, overuse of these synthetic chemicals, I call them as biocides, chemical fertilizers and pesticides. So I just want to make the point that we ourselves, the way we are producing food, the way we are processing food, consuming food, are responsible for 50% of the greenhouse gas emission. So, therefore, in terms of finding a solution, so we look at farming in harmony with nature, and that's what the agroecology is. So, this is the solution for a range of problems, including global warming. So, the natural farming that I'm describing is, how do you farm in harmony with nature? That means, how did nature do it? Because the soil that you're seeing now was not always there. This is something over 400, 500 million years. Nature has created this soil, which over the last 200 years, 300 years, we have succeeded in, sending this rich organic matter back to the air. So, nature's mechanism is what we are trying to mimic. And what is this nature's mechanism? And this is the nature's mechanism. That means essentially what we are doing is harnessing light. So photosynthesis process is where we are harnessing solar energy through chlorophyll. And this is what nature had. We had sunlight, you had water, air, and microbes, and the minerals which form the land mass. And that's what nature had. And nature has created this beautiful planet with all biodiversity with this starting material. So if we look at that, what nature does, nature never used any chemicals. So the sunlight that is converted into food by the leaves about oh, uh, kindly mute, please. Lot of disturbance.
Please mute your mics.
Yeah. So in the photosynthesis process, the food that is produced, 40% of that is used by the shoot system for more leaves, more branches, flowers, fruits. About 30% of the sugars are stored in the root system, but 30% are exuded into the soil. And why are plants exuding 30%? This is food for the microbes in the soil, because soil is a living entity. So these microbes, I mean, that will take a long time to explain all that. The microbes, in turn, transfer make the nutrients available to the plant, whether it's nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur. There is no shortage of minerals. There is no shortage of any nutrient. What is in short supply is, are we equipping the plants, the soil, to make these nutrients bioavailable? So if you have a healthy soil biology, a plant should get all the nutrients that it requires, and that is nature's own mechanism. And if you follow agroecology, if you follow these principles of nature, you will not only be putting carbon into the soil, and once you put carbon into the soil, each additional gram of carbon can hold 8 grams of water, additional 8 grams of water. So straight away you get that. The nutrient absorption mechanism, so the plants get the required minerals, trace minerals, because plants require 20, 30, 40 minerals, not just NPK. So these minerals in the required quantities are made available by this beautiful natural mechanism, very exquisite mechanism. The fungi in the soil, the mycorrhizae, they play a very important role in creating soil structure, so creating a porous soil. So I can go on for about half an hour on this, but I don't have time. All I want to say is that in agroecology, we believe that there is no shortage of any mineral. It is how they are made bioavailable, how the plants can, how do we create conditions that the plants can utilize this. So to take this forward, in Andhra Pradesh natural farming, we have these principles. And this, I believe, are universal principles. They are applicable in India, in Sri Lanka, in Europe, America, wherever. These are universal principles. But practices are specific, context specific, farmer specific. So what are these principles? First principle is to keep the soil covered with crops 365 days of the year. This is also called as the living root principle. And not with monocrops, have diverse crops, also have trees in the landscape. So with these two, you are maximizing the flow of root exudates and thereby maximizing the nutrient absorption by the plants. Then do not disturb the soils, and to the extent possible, have a armor for the soil, mulching with crop residues, integrating animals into farming, biostimulants as necessary catalysts, because we have destroyed the soil biology, so we need to build it back, need to build it back quickly using indigenous seeds, and pest management through better agronomic practices and also using botanical extracts. And a strict no in this list is no synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, and weedicides. So these are our 9 principles. And what is specific to India is the role of the biostimulants. I'll explain that. That is very unique. That enables us to make a quick transition so that farmers who move into natural farming, they do not suffer any yield losses, they do not suffer any other negative consequences. And in Andhra Pradesh, we have one very unique breakthrough, which I'll explain. Using tweaking the practices, we have actually had a breakthrough in terms of enabling plants to even in semi-arid rain-fed conditions to be, have a 365 days green cover. I'll explain shortly. So this is the first principle, having crop diversity so that we maximize photosynthesis capacity and rate. These are our recommendations, and farmers, you can see here in the mango orchard, they have got cowpea, field beans. Again, on the borders also, they have some other crops. This is again similar. In a mango field, there's a, cereal crop, millets. This is a inoculum for seed treatment. So this is made from cow dung, cow urine, lime. It's fermented for 12 hours, and then it's sprinkled on the seeds. And this really gives a tremendous advantage to the seeds. They also dip seedlings before transplantation. Then this is a soil amendment. This is called Gana Jivamrutam, again made from cow dung, jaggery, pulse flour, cow urine, and a handful of uncontaminated soil, basically to multiply the microbes in the soil and also the microbes in the gut, cow gut. So this, we still don't know how they act. What scientists are telling us is that they act as signals. They are signaling the microbes in the soil to sort of tell them that, okay, food is arriving in terms of the root exudates. So this is a solid inoculum. It can shelf life is for about 6 months. This again, farmer preparing the solid inoculum in the field. This is a liquid inoculum, which is, sprayed once in 10 days, once a week, depending on the crop, 7, 10, or 15 days. Yeah, again, we have a women's self-help group where they prepare all this on their own collectively. And as I mentioned, these are the pest management. We have more than 200 formulations. I think here perhaps they're doing a neem-based formulation, but there are 200 plus formulations for pest management. But we also have mechanical devices. You can see these yellow and blue sticky traps. There are pheromone traps, light traps. So there are various mechanical measures for trapping. Then agronomical practices in terms of intercrops, border crops, trap crops. And then we have the botanicals. So we have multiple, defense systems for tackling pests. We also believe that over a period of time, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, there will not be any pest attack, because the plants, when they grow on in healthy soils, are able to repel pests on their own. And that is something our farmers are telling us. And use of indigenous seed. So we are taking steps to, make these seeds available. But otherwise, a farmer, once they practice natural farming, they can use the seed after one season, because the seed itself becomes, much better by having grown in natural farming practices. This is something I want to talk about, how natural farming is related to, this is very important, is related to the water cycle, the water holding capacity of the soils. In Andhra Pradesh, the soils, because we've lost a lot of soil organic matter, the soils are non-porous and non-permeable. But thanks to improving the soil biology and the action of the mycorrhizae, the soil becomes porous. So what happens? Once the soil becomes porous, so when it rains, the water percolates rather than running off, carrying away the soil. So that's one advantage. The second is, once soil organic matter is increasing, the water holding capacity of the soil is increasing. And the third thing which we discovered through our experiments about 3 years ago is the natural farming is enabling the plants to actually harness water from the air. This sounds unbelievable, but this is what we have been experimenting and experiencing for the last 3 years. And we invite friends from Sri Lanka to come and see this. This for the first time actually this has been demonstrated that in semi-arid areas, in dryland agriculture, can water from the air be a very important source of irrigation? We believe it can be. Uh, so you can see here, this is one of our farmers, and this land was a barren land. So she has covered it with mulch from whatever material was available, and she is using these seeds, uh, treating them with the bijamrita and sowing them. There's some germination with very little rainfall. Germination happens, and this is all without any irrigation. So on this piece of 1 acre of land without irrigation in a semi-arid area, this farmer was able to take 3 crops, and she was able to increase her income some 4 times compared to any other farmer following conventional methods. So what I will do is I'll just show a 2-minute video film to show these various practices, because some of it I may not be able to convey through the slideshow. I'll show you a 2-minute video. Just give me a half a minute. Is it audible, Professor Yapa? Is the sound okay?
Yeah, sound okay. Yeah, sound okay.
కానీ అది అట్లే వస్తుంది సార్, జీవామృతం స్ప్రే చేయడం వల్ల. వర్షం కూడా లేకపోయినా ఈ మల్చింగ్ ద్వారా అది ఎప్పుడు పచ్చగానే ఉంటుంది, కాయ పూత ఎప్పుడు జరుగుతూనే ఉంది సార్. మాకు 25 రకాలు రోజు కోయడం, రోజు అమ్మడం జరుగుతుంది సార్. రోజు డబ్బులు రావడమే జరుగుతుంది. అందువలన ఈ 50 సెంట్లు 60.
So there was one farmer, her experience in creating this a oasis, because that district is a district with very poor rainfall, and you can see only her field is green. All other neighboring fields are, barren. So we still don't know the full science, but I think our expectation is that 60 to 80% of that is water harnessed from the air. Yeah. So now where are we? What these were the principles and practices. The next section I'll talk about the implementation, how we are as a government organization, how are we implementing this, and what is the outreach. Yeah. So this program started in 2016. Of course, prior to this was another program called the Community Managed Sustainable Agriculture, so which started in 2004. But through the Agriculture Ministry, through the Agriculture Department, we started the program in 2016. I was heading the Agriculture Department, and we started with 40,000 farmers in 700 villages. And as you can see over the years, last year we reached 28% villages and 10% farmers. So more than 700,000 farmers. And this year we are targeting 1.1 million farmers and farm workers. The state government has committed funds to a tune of $250 million for this transformation up to 2024. And obviously, depending on our requirement, we'll be, increasing to reach our target to cover all farmers. We'll obviously be raising more money. We've also been supported by a philanthropy, Azim Premji philanthropy of about $16 million. So as you can see, in a very short period of time, we have been able to reach out to 10% farmers in the state. And what are the impacts? So we have independent, agencies doing crop cutting experiments. We have 2 seasons, Kharif and Rabi. So the results show that cost of cultivation has reduced very significantly. Yield differences are not significant, and there is significant increase in net income for the farmers. And the farmers have reported better soil health, crop health, resilience, economic empowerment, and the kind of extension system that we have is, again, because this is knowledge intensive agriculture, it's not input intensive agriculture. So we have 9 major crops. They account for 78% of the area in the state. Paddy is the most important one. And as you can see here, of these 9 crops, this is for 2019. For almost all the crops, the yields are higher except for 2 crops. And in the Rabi season, out of 4 crops, except for 1 crop, all 3 other crops, the yields of natural farming are higher. The cost reduction is very significant for all the crops, except for 1 small crop in Rabi. And as you can see here, the net incomes are significantly higher. Paddy, most important crop, there was 66% increase in net income. Pigeon pea, cotton, chilies are where the net incomes have increased very significantly. And this is just snapshot of different crops. This is paddy crop being raised through SRI methods. The maize crop, jawar, maize, cashew. Cashew yields have increased very significantly through natural farming methods. This is pigeon pea. This is coffee. And coffee is very important in the hilly areas of Andhra Pradesh. And natural farming has made a tremendous difference to the coffee. You can see here the tribal farmer over 4 years. He started with kilos, yield in parchment per acre, 75 kilos, 96, 160, 211, and last year, current year, 245. So this is the kind of increase in their yields. Costs have come down, and as the soil, fertility has increased, and as their methods, they have become more adept. So they're able to increase their yields very substantially. In terms of resilience, we had, in 2020, we had heavy rains and waterlogging. And you can see here, paddy crop undamaged in case of natural farming, even though the fields were submerged for about 2 weeks, both sets of fields. But the conventional agriculture plot was completely destroyed. Same thing here, natural farming plot and conventional plot, natural farming plot and conventional plot. And this is for cotton. So the resilience is extremely important. The root length in natural farming is very high. That means root shoot ratios are very positive. Uh, Water percolation happens. So due to multiple reasons, the resilience in natural farming is very high. And for farm workers, we have, they are very important for us because very large numbers of farm workers are there. So we have a strategy of ensuring that homestead gardens, so that 15, 20 different kinds of vegetables and fruits are raised. So it's like a mini food forest in their own backyard. So it's improving health because these crops are more nutritious than what they were buying from the market, and steady some source of income also. You can see this has been a big hit with our women, and biodiversity has improved. And Mother Nature is very forgiving. So if you treat properly, then she rewards you very well. And all this has happened in a very short period of time. We are finding the return of birds, bees, earthworms. And we did a survey where natural farming versus conventional. So per square meter, there were 47 earthworms in natural farming plots versus 6 in conventional plots. So about 8 times higher. Yeah, now coming to implementation. And this is very important. I think Sri Lanka is going through a similar discussion. Can this be done overnight? How much time does it take? So our experience is it takes some time. It doesn't happen overnight because farmers' mindsets over the last 60 years. It's basically a mindset issue. It's not that it cannot happen overnight. It can happen overnight, but uh, changing farmers' minds, more important, changing minds of scientists, changing mindset of government is the more difficult one. And then there are vested interests, as Professor Yapa pointed out. But there are bigger points that our extension system. Are we reaching out to farmers properly, and how do you make it self-sustaining? So in Andhra Pradesh, I mentioned these as our critical innovations. Government support has been very forthcoming. Government supports this program in terms of championing it, in terms of funding it, and in terms of issuing the relevant government orders for all the line departments to follow. And from our side, we have created, the knowledge. We know that farming in harmony with nature is the right approach. And accordingly, we have prepared the package of practices to help the farmers internalize it. Our biggest strength is the women's collectives, women SHGs and federations, and a farmer to farmer extension system, and setting up of facilitating organizations for the long-term handholding. I'll explain that. And then we are continuously learning from others and incorporating these innovations. The harnessing of water vapor is one such innovation which I learned from Australian scientist Walter Yana. And then we have collaborations with global and national institutions to see that we are up to date. And then all the government aid departments are working in harmony with us. Now, I just want to focus on 2-3 very important implementation issues which helped this program. So the most important one is the role of the women self-help groups. And this is a program that we started in the year 2000. I have invited Jiva, actually, she's from Sri Lanka. She's from the World Bank, and she was our, she helped us in initiating this program in Andhra. So grateful to her and her colleagues. We started this program 20 years ago, and I never visualized at that time that women's empowerment could lead to a big transformation around climate friendly, climate resilient agriculture. Way back in 2005, we seeded this idea of sustainable agriculture through women's self-help groups. And then in 2016, we had the agriculture department under RYSS promoting natural farming. And so now we are here where we are taking the support of the women's self-help group. So currently in our 3,730 program villages, we are working with more than 100,000 self-help groups, and there are about close to 5,000 federations. And around 83% of SHG leaders are practicing natural farming. This is our setup. This is for the whole state. We have 8.7 million women members who are organized in 840,000 self-help groups. Then these are further federated into 28,000 village federations. And we have a sub-district unit called Mandal. So these are about 662 Mandal federations, where about 10,000 to 12,000 women are part of these Mandal federations. And then we have 30 district federations. So this is something which has been built over the last 20 years. And I had the privilege of leading this program from 2000 to 2010, and also taking this program to the national level from 2010 to 2015. And then I came back to take up the agriculture program in Andhra Pradesh. And you see these women, this is in crores. So almost 9,000 crores is their saving, and 10,000 crores is their corpus. Government has provided a livelihoods grant of 800 crores, and our current government wants to top it up to around 11,000 crores as equity to the women self-help groups. And these women, over the last 6 years, have actually been able to borrow around 42,000 crores from the commercial banks. And last year alone, they borrowed about 16,000 crores. So the women groups are also financially very strong. And our groups have the highest loan repayment rate in the country. So the banks are also very happy in dealing with the women self-help group. So it is this, their unity, their federations, their ability to borrow money from the banks, repay the money, and most important is the continuous capacity building of these women. So we invest time in building the knowledge, building capacities of the women organizations. And you can see here, so collective action, so they learn from each other and they teach others. They learn from each other, they prepare farming plans, they review the implementation, and they provide financing for the transformation. And because we are going through them, the identification of the most vulnerable is again, happens very seamlessly. So this is the bedrock. Bedrock of our program is our 20-year history, experience of building the rural women self-help group. We also have urban women self-help group. Through these meetings, continuous meetings, trainings. Of course, this is a program where both men and women are involved, but the women collectives make it easy to transfer the knowledge. As you know, agriculture is essentially feminine. 70 to 80% is the participation of women in agriculture, but they hardly receive any extension support. So here we are reversing it. And as you can see, about 83% of the women leaders are practicing natural farming. Then we also have a very different system of knowledge dissemination. It's a very democratic system. It is farmer to farmer. So it's the champion farmers who are transferring this knowledge. That's why they are credible. People believe in them. So we have close to 6,000 such champion farmers who are living with the community. They are best practitioners, so they have very good credibility, and they provide that continuous hand-holding support. And this agroecology, natural farming, regenerative agriculture is knowledge intensive, whereas the chemical agriculture is input intensive. So if you don't provide this kind of hand-holding support, then it's very difficult to take it forward. We also use ICT. We have video dissemination happening. We have more than 800 odd videos around the different package of practices, inspiration stories, so that we can quickly scale it up. And yeah, this I think very important. I would like to say that a farmer in the first year, if a farmer has 2 acres of land, they'll do this only in half acre. So if the results are good, they expand their area. So in our opinion, it may take up to 3 to 4 years for the full area to 3 to 4 years for the full area to be coming under zero chemical usage, and to incorporate high-end models, it may take another 2 years. So 3 to 5 years is what it takes. At the same time, you know, all the farmers will not join in the first year. So this is a very democratic process. Farmer is an independent choice by the farmers. In Andhra Pradesh, we are not giving any incentive to the farmers, saying that if you do natural farming, we'll give you additional, cash grants. So there is no incentive. It is, based on convincing them that this is good for their incomes, good for their health, good for the soil. So we think about, by year 3, year 4, we can reach out to around 80% farmers. But 5 to 8 years it takes for the whole village. So whole village, all farmers, all farms, all practices. So therefore, you need an organization which provides hand-holding support for this 5 to 8 year period. So NGOs have a role to play, government has a role to play, but most important are farmers organizations, women's organizations. So this is a very essential building block. So without having good community organizations, it's very difficult to sustain this. It cannot be done top down. It doesn't cost much. It's in our case, our cost is now around 15,000 rupees over 8 years. And as you can see, around 86% of this cost is for knowledge building, capacity building, supporting the community institutions. Around 12% is for program management, tracking, ICT support. So this is a cost over 8 years, not per year, 15,000 rupees over 8 years. And what does it do for the government? Definitely it improves the incomes of the farmers, but we have, assuming the rate at which we are going in terms of transforming land, we may require around 10,000 crores for complete transformation. But during this period, we would have saved government 18,000 crores in electricity subsidy, because we are finding savings in water, around 30 to 50% savings in water. So, and government subsidizes the electricity of the farmers. So just the savings in electricity subsidy is twice the amount required for the transformation. And the savings in fertilizer subsidy is about 3.5 to 4 times the money that is required for the transformation. So from a government point of view also, it is cost effective. So it's a win-win-win. Win for the farmers, win for the consumers, win for Mother Earth, and win for the government. So we have not yet quantified the ecosystem benefits. I think they outnumber or they outweigh the financial benefits. Yeah, I also want to mention that we have a very good set of partners who are helping us in building the science. I mentioned Walter Yana, then University of Reading, FAO, UN Environment, World Agroforestry, CIHAD. And there are some subjects of research which we have listed out are most important areas of research. We're also there are some more agencies that we are going to partner with. And we're also supporting other states and other countries in this transformation process. So I think I've come to the end of the presentation. So I just want to say that it is very important from farmers' welfare, health, our health, and most important, the planetary health. But the way in which you do it is also very important. It requires a tremendous amount of capacity building, requires the social capital, requires human capital to support natural capital. So maybe more questions. I mean, I'll be able to answer more or give more dimensions during the question answer session. I'll stop here and thank you very much for this opportunity to make this presentation. Thank you, and over to you, Professor Yapa.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vijay Kumar. And actually, I really appreciate your presentation with enough information, and it is really convincing for Sri Lankan farmers because most of these technologies that you have actually shown are cost effective, and it's really matching to the Sri Lankan condition. Our farmers are poor small scale farmers. So this is a very good lessons, are very good models that Sri Lankan farmers should follow. So we really look forward to working with you. Actually, we have a lot to learn from you and the Indian farmers. So thank you so much, Mr. Vijay Kumar. And I badly want to have a copy of your presentation because I am also a teacher at a university. Thank you so much.
I have mailed it to Anuka. I have mailed it to her.
Thank you so much. So I think Professor Peter Rossett, I have met him long ago in India. I think Professor Peter Rossett, if you recall your memories, yeah. So yes, really. Yeah, I think I have I have changed a lot now with enough gray hair. You may not recognize me.
Me too.
But I have not actually deviated from the path that I have been going towards ecological agriculture and 100% ecological farming in the world. Thank you so much. And I invite you to present what you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure and a great honor for me to be here today. I was absolutely fascinated by the marvelous presentation by my good friend Vijay Kumar, which is one of the most, he's directing one of the most important public policy in favor of agroecology cases that we have in the world today. So that it's very much an honor, and I hope to get a copy of the PowerPoint also afterwards. And also any publications that are coming out with some of that data would be great. I want to thank Monlar, member of La Via Campesina in Sri Lanka, for the invitation to be here. And I'm especially Anuka, who was the person from Monlar who contacted me. Thank you. And also, it's really a pleasure to be with Dr. Yapa, who I remember very well, because actually I learned some very important things about agroecology from you, about the balance of microbes and nutrients and bokashi over time, putting carbon into the soil, all kinds of things. I think about very often the things that we learned together and that I learned from you. So I'm going to share my presentation now. Okay, so Mr. Vijay Kumar gave us a very good example of how public policy and the state can facilitate process of scaling up peasant agroecology from a few families to many families. I'm going to talk about farmer to farmer ways of doing that. Vijay showed us how farmer to farmer extension is part of the program and the process in Andhra Pradesh. And I'm going to talk about it more from the point of view of farmer organizations, which of course he also mentioned were critical to any kind of large-scale scaling up of peasant agroecology. Agroecology is a science of how agricultural systems work. It's a set of agricultural practices like the ones described by Vijay that permit farming that's more sustainable, does not use chemicals. And it's also a global social movement to transform agriculture. And if we think about what is the situation of rural areas around the world, we basically have territories that are being disputed between peasants, family farmers, small farmers, and mega corporations, mining concessions, agribusiness with large-scale monoculture based on chemical, driving peasants literally with police and army off the land through land grabbing. And really what we have is a global dispute between making our rural areas available for global markets versus using them to meet local needs. And of course, if we have a peasant food system, then we will have much more biodiversity, and we will also have more human cultural diversity, as opposed to the very sterile industrial food chain, which we saw its weakness during this pandemic of COVID. Weakness in the sense of most of the hypotheses of the origin of SARS to have to do with industrial food production. Most of the co-factors that lead some people to die more from COVID than others are related to bad diets, which are related to the industrial food system. And the long value chains of the industrial food system collapsed many times over the last year because of lockdowns, highways, transportation being affected, and people had to turn to the local peasant food web and peasant markets, local production in order to get through this very difficult time. But it highlights some of the things that Vijay said about why we need to change the food system. Right now, in fact, small farmers have 1/4 of the land in the world and produce 70% of the food or 75% of the food. We need to move more in that direction towards increasing through agrarian reform the amount of land farmed by small farmers. Some of my research over the years has shown that small farms in general produce more per hectare than large farms in a large variety of countries. That high input industrial agriculture, when it comes into an area, the Green Revolution, at first it can boost yields, but it cannot sustain them. It destroys soil fertility, it destroys biodiversity, and eventually yields go down. And also my research confirms the same thing that we saw from Vijay and Andhra Pradesh, that the more agroecological, more integrated farms are the ones that are also most productive. So we have to get beyond this myth of productivity associated with industrial agriculture and agribusiness, because in fact, who is much more productive are small farmers on small areas with more integrated, more agroecological systems. For many years, I was part of the Secretariat of La Via Campesina, of which Manlar is a part, the global movement of small farmers, peasants, family farmers, indigenous people, landless and farm workers around the world. This movement has prioritized agroecology. It's a movement in many countries. Via Campesina put forth the idea of food sovereignty instead of food security, because it matters how food is produced. Is it produced ecologically, or is it produced with poison? It matters where food is produced. Is it produced in my own province or state, or is it shipped from halfway around the world? And it's important who produces our food. It's not the same a small farmer or peasant family as a global corporation. So food sovereignty says food should be produced agroecological, it should be produced more locally, and it should be produced by small farmers, and that requires agrarian reform and agroecology. So agroecology for La Via Campesina is a key pillar in building food sovereignty. And of course, as Vijay pointed out, there are many advantages for peasant agroecology: healthy food, better rural livelihoods, resilience, as he pointed out, to climate and other shocks, as he pointed out, lower greenhouse gas emission, lower production costs, as he showed, leading to less indebtedness by farmers, better stewardship of productive resources like the soil, and greater autonomy and less external dependence for farmer families, which is a very important element. Agroecology is about knowledge. And if we ask, where does the agroecology knowledge come from? It comes first and foremost from the accumulated knowledge and practices of smallholder peasant farmers over the last many thousands of years. We wouldn't have any food crops, we wouldn't have any domestic animals if we hadn't had this accumulation of innovation and practice by peasant farmers over thousands of years. When we talk about agroecology as a science, it really is based on a dialogue among different kinds of knowledge. For example, between this peasant knowledge and so-called Western sciences like ecology, agronomy, rural sociology, etc. But as Vijay said, nature is the model for agroecology. We're trying to learn from nature, emulate nature, and coexist with nature. Agribusiness and industrial farming is farming against nature. Natural farming or agroecology is farming with nature. So that philosophical difference could not be larger. Now about knowledge, many urban people have a great prejudice against peasants and small farmers, and they may say that these are ignorant people, these are stupid people, these are people with a low level of education. This is the typical kind of urban prejudice when urban people see, for example, a peasant preparing the land like this. But in fact, a small farmer or peasant preparing the land has a vast amount of knowledge and is integrating that knowledge in very complex ways and updating it all the time, updating it during the day because of weather patterns, knowledge of climate, knowledge of soil, knowledge of animals, knowledge of plants, knowledge of the market, knowledge of products, knowledge of animal behavior. All of that knowledge is being integrated, updated, and applied all the time. So I doubt many city people could mobilize and organize that degree of knowledge on a regular basis. So the starting point then is that peasants have a lot of knowledge, and agroecology is about all of that knowledge that peasants have. Principal characteristics of agroecology are to apply principles, not recipes. In other words, if the principle is organic matter into the soil, in different parts of the world, you may have different sources of organic matter, so you may be finding different ways to do it. You're applying the same principle, but in accordance with each unique local reality, which requires activating farmer knowledge and creativity. But the Green Revolution caused the loss of a lot of farmer knowledge, made farmers lose creativity, and made them come to depend on outside knowledge from agronomists, from extension agents, from agrochemical dealers, seed dealers, and instead of their own knowledge. So we have to address this because this outside knowledge generally promotes the monoculture chemical way of farming. I'm not going to go through all of these principles, but they're readily available. And a major challenge then remains. I think that between what Vijay has said and what I've just said, we can say agroecological farming by peasants and family farmers is clearly preferable to the industrial food system. But we have the challenge. How do we bring it to scale such that peasant agroecology is practiced by ever more families over ever larger territories? This is the challenge right now, and it's a challenge that the state government of Andhra Pradesh, for example, is trying to address, but that in social movements and farmer organizations and La Via Campesina, we're also trying to address. And in my academic work here in Mexico at the EcoSur Advanced Studies Institute, we have a research group on massification of agroecology, or scaling up of agroecology. And so what we've done is we've looked at successful cases from all over the world of how peasants and small farmers have been able to dramatically increase the number of families in the area under agroecological farming. So we looked at success cases in all continents, and we tried to derive some overall lessons from them, like what are the key drivers of success stories of the emblematic cases, and how can we use that knowledge to design other or new processes. So some of the things that we identify in our research is that social organization and social movements are very central to all of the success stories. And as Vijay said, even when the state is doing it, the state needs farmer and community organizations, because that's really who is in the ground on the territory in the community. Success cases are usually based on some kind of horizontal social process methodology, horizontal pedagogy, the protagonism of peasants and their organizations themselves in most of the case studies, although time will tell us if in Andhra Pradesh the state can also be the protagonist. Farming practices that work have to have a motivating discourse and framing. Farmers, it's a risk to make a change, so they have to be motivated, and it can be a spiritual motivation, it can be a political motivation, it can be a religious motivation, it can be a health motivation, but there has to be a discourse that motivates them. A political opportunity, for example, somebody like Vijay gets into a state government, this is a political opportunity for the grassroots movement to expand because it has an external ally. Also, charismatic leaders, local champions, what Vijay was calling champion farmers, favorable markets, markets that maybe pay a bit more for agroecological peasant products, and favorable public policies, such as the case in Andhra Pradesh. Although many of our cases did not have favorable public policies. So in fact, farmer organizations were able to scale out despite public policy, not with the help of public policy in many cases. Now with Andhra Pradesh, as I say again, we'll see if it can be accelerated with public policy. So this question of the state being able to or not, there's an open question about who can drive a process to scale up agroecology, how to do it, why to do it, because agroecology has become subject of attempts at co-optation by agribusiness, corporations who want to paint themselves green. So they would like to scale up organic production under contract. That's obviously not what we're fighting for in peasant organizations. And then we have important test cases of this question, can the state take agroecology to scale? And when we looked at it in Latin America, we see important case in the past in Brazil, an important current case in Mexico. And then if we look at it on a global level, we have the Andhra Pradesh case. To give you an idea of why there maybe are some doubts, in the Brazil case, when they had the PT governments of President Lula and President Dilma, the state created policies of public purchasing from peasant agriculture, public purchasing of food, and with an extra price if it was ecological. So across Brazil, this drove peasant organizations and peasant cooperatives to vastly scale up their ecological, agroecological production because they had a good market in the state. And the state gave them loans to do that. However, then the government changed and the right-wing government of Bolsonaro came in, canceled all of the purchase contracts and called in all of the credit. And so many farmer cooperatives now are collapsing because they lost their biggest market, the state, and who they are indebted to, the state, is saying they have to pay back their loans now. And so there's an open question. If we upscale through the state, do we put ourselves at risk of a change in government? Or should we scale up in a more autonomous way? So this is an open question based on the Brazil case. Mexico case, Mexico and Andhra Pradesh are the two largest cases in terms of area and number of families anywhere in the world. Natural farming in Andhra Pradesh and what's called planting life in Mexico, which is a national agroforestry and agroecology policy where farmers are paid a salary basically to change what they're doing. I would say in the Mexico case, there are serious problems, and those are the problems that I would say are normally typical of when the state is leading this process, in that we have people in the capital city designing farming systems for people in remote provinces, and those farming systems imposed through payment and extension agents on farmers when many times they don't make sense in the local ecosystem. So many times, and this will be something we have to evaluate with Andhra Pradesh, many times when the state carries out these processes, the state does everything wrong, and the state is corrupt, and the state is, and so it's not entirely clear to us in the farmer movement yet. Of course, we want favorable policies from the state and policy, but we would like policies in particular that support the work of farmer organizations to promote agroecology. So I believe this is an open question. Very hopeful about the Andhra Pradesh case, less hopeful about the Mexico case, disappointed with what happened in Brazil, but these are all things we need to be debating. I can say that overall, social organization is the culture medium on which agroecology grows and spreads. If people in villages, communities are part of an organization, the organization has horizontal social process methodology, then there's a really good possibility of a particular case to be successful. And we can say that in La Via Campesina, the global agroecology process is based on horizontal exchanges and also on peasant and farmer agroecology schools where peasants and farmers teach peasants and farmers. We know, of course, that the case that was presented to us in Andhra Pradesh is the state taking on a process or the promotion of a technology that was already being disseminated by a grassroots farmers movement in Karnataka and many other states, and I would say had been growing very rapidly, and now and has been documented by our research group also in Mexico. And also, we recently wrote an initial thing about Andhra Pradesh, expressing our excitement about it, but also what the concerns would be about how in previous cases in other countries, the state has managed to screw things up. But this is what it looks like in India. We've seen a lot of pictures already. And we initially thought that this was very top down. We have that there's a trainer who's talking to 2,000 people, and it's just a transmission from above to below of knowledge. But when we really studied the process, for example, in Karnataka, it turns out that the most important thing is after the teacher, for example, explains how to make a particular biological fertilizer, then in the break, all of those farmers are talking to each other and asking, who already does it in my district? Can I visit you? Can I have your cell phone number? And so in fact, from these large trainings, what emerges are farmer to farmer exchange processes in the community, village, and territory. And then at an international level in La Via Campesina, this is one of our international exchanges where we brought farmer organizations from all over Asia, including Sri Lanka, to visit farmers practicing natural farming in Karnataka, India. And this already has sparked through La Via Campesina several other cases of natural farming in other countries. Now, getting back to this question of knowledge, the Green Revolution, as I said, was about the imposition of knowledge. It was external knowledge, not peasant knowledge, came from university agronomy faculties through the know-it-all agronomist or extension agent who came to rural areas and basically crushed the initiative, the leadership, the knowledge, and the practices of local peasant families. And those diverse peasant landscapes were turned into monoculture green deserts through this imposition. But it all starts with the imposition of knowledge. And it was imposed in such a forceful way that it caused farmers to doubt their own knowledge, to not teach their own knowledge to their children, and to become dependent on somebody, the technician, the agronomist, the extension agent, coming from outside to resolve any problem. So even though farmers maybe had been 1,000, 2,000 years farming in this area, with the imposition of the Green Revolution, they doubted and started to lose a lot of their own knowledge. We have a very interesting case in Latin America, the most successful case of which is Cuba, which we call the campesino to campesino or farmer to farmer agroecology movement and methodology, which is a horizontal exchange of knowledge. So if in if in this case we have top-down imposition of knowledge, in the farmer to farmer or campesino to campesino methodology, it's a horizontal exchange. The man with the hat there is a agroecology peasant farmer. This is on his farm, and the people there in the picture are other farmers coming to learn from him from his experience. So this is a horizontal, not a top-down exchange of knowledge that is at the heart of this methodology, this farmer-to-farmer methodology, which has been very successful in Via Campesina in many different countries, in which we've also documented in books and scientific studies this success. So one of the questions that this farmer-to-farmer methodology addresses is, how do we go from chemical monoculture, which is a very simplified system, to a complex agroecological system? Can we do it all at once? This is one of the questions that Vijay raised. Can farmers be asked to change everything? Many times when that happens, if we apply the same top-down way of imposing farming practices, then that provokes resistance from farmers. In this case would be resistance to agroecology if it's imposed in a top-down way and asking farmers to change everything. So what the farmer-to-farmer methodology says, we should not ask farmers to change everything at once. It's better to build a step-by-step, bit-by-bit process where farmers can solve their individual problems via agroecological solutions. So this is like a different way to conceive the dissemination of knowledge. So if we imagine a typical village anywhere in the world, we may have many families doing chemical monocropping, but usually within the universe of that village, there are several families who have one or more agroecological practices. Maybe the other families don't even know what they're doing. But if we create a farmer-to-farmer process, we would identify those families who already have the practices, and they would be teachers for the other families through the process. So what this campesino or farmer-to-farmer methodology is about is a key teaching or pedagogical moment. And that is a workshop offered in the farm of one of these families who already practice agroecological farming in the dark green. So one of them will offer a workshop, for example, on Sunday, and then other farmers would visit. So we are talking about a peasant family who has an agroecological solution to a problem that's common to many other families. They will offer a workshop on their farm to these other families who have the problem, but they don't know the solution yet. So they will learn the solution from a peasant family just like them. And so in this process, instead of the agronomist or extension agent being the teacher, it's the peasants who are teachers, and their farm is their classroom. So this is horizontal instead of top down. If we talk about agroecology in general, that most communities farmed without chemicals before chemicals existed, right? So traditional knowledge of how to farm and raise animals in local environments without outside inputs like chemicals, commercial seeds, commercial livestock feed, that knowledge was fragmented, atomized, and dispersed amongst community members by this external imposition. So to build agroecological peasant territories, what I believe Vijay was calling a bio village or something like that, we need to find this, who has this knowledge, recover the knowledge, and share the knowledge horizontally, making all of that knowledge whole again at the level of the community or village, like it was before the Green Revolution, where everybody knew how to farm without chemicals in that area. So we need to decolonize knowledge. If the Green Revolution colonized people's brains, we need to decolonize now. So that's the purpose of these peasant-to-peasant, farmer-to-farmer, or campesino-campesino methodologies. How does that work? In the case of Cuba, Mozambique, Brazil, other places using this methodology, a facilitation group, usually from the farmer organization or from the village school, does a survey of all of the families in the village to find out which families have which agroecological practices. So for example, the third person, Maria Diaz, maybe she is incorporating crop residue after the harvest. She does crop rotation. She does intercropping. She has living fence posts. She does contour planting. She has botanical pest repellents, and she has homeopathic treatment for insects, for ticks on her livestock, on her cattle. So she would be chosen, for example, as a promoter, and she would offer a promoter of agroecology. She is a peasant farmer, and she would offer workshops on her farm to teach those different practices that she uses. And then we would make an inventory of the families who have problems. So for example, if the first farmer there, Mr. João Pedro, has a problem with ticks on his livestock, why then the organization will invite him to a workshop by Maria Diaz, where she's going to teach homeopathic treatment of ticks on livestock. Because she's a peasant farmer just like him, he's more likely to believe that it would work for him and his own farm than if it comes from an external voice like an extension agent. So this is the essence of Campesino a Campesino. It's a methodology that when it was applied to create an agroecology movement inside the National Farmer Organization, ANAP, which is a member of Via Campesina, in 25 years, 50% of the peasant families in all of Cuba made the transition to agroecological farming through this horizontal farmer-to-farmer methodology. And here's an example of one family who took pictures before and after. This was their farm before they did agroecological farming, when it was just chemical monoculture, and the soil was very damaged and there was very little biodiversity. Then they started participating in these exchanges with other farmers and applying what they learned from the more agroecological farmers. So 2004, you can see that tree, the same tree now, a few years later, 2000, I can't read it here, but what year? Doesn't matter. A few years later, you can see the difference in their farm through these horizontal exchanges. And so they were able to completely reorganize on the basis of, on the level of landscape, become very much more productive, just like Vijay showed, and all of that through these horizontal farmer-to-farmer exchanges. What we can see in Cuba, I won't go through all of this, is that the movement grew very fast. It addressed the declining productivity of the Green Revolution. The agroecological farms produce more than the monoculture farms. And as a result of this agroecological transformation in the peasant sector itself has come to contribute much more food to the national need for food sovereignty than other sectors. In other words, the relative contribution of peasants went up at the same time as peasants became more agroecological. This methodology, which came from Cuba, which came from Guatemala originally, moved to Mexico, to Honduras, then to Nicaragua, then to Cuba. Now through La Via Campesina, this methodology is being transferred to various places in Latin America where it's being implemented very successfully in Mozambique by UNAC, Via Campesina Mozambique. Some processes now also with the methodology beginning in Asia. It seems like this may be a component of the Andhra Pradesh case as well. So this is a social process methodology that's very successful to allow organizations to scale up peasant agroecology. It's gone from Cuba to Mozambique versus Via Campesina, from Cuba to Brazil through La Via Campesina. And we can basically say that there's a whole step-by-step way to create a local process. We also do a lot of training because we need to train people in the peasant organizations to facilitate and build these farmer-to-farmer processes. So we've created many peasant agroecology schools around the world. Some of them are actually universities. Some of them are more informal. Some of them are high schools. Not just in Latin America, in Asia, Indonesia, in India, Amrita Bhumi, and in Karnataka, Canada, Peasant Agroecology School. And so the Via Campesina slogan is globalize the struggle, globalize hope. I think we can also say globalize peasant to peasant, farmer to farmer processes, and globalize peasant agroecology. So with that, I will conclude my presentation, and we can have a lot more discussion or questions during the debate part. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for Professor Rossett for your excellent presentation. So as usual, so it was very interesting. I hope not only for me, but also for everyone who actually has who have listened to your presentation. Actually, we have a lot to learn. So day by day we learn from people like you, especially some techniques and the methodologies and the inside of ecological agriculture. So I think these two presentations will be extremely helpful for all the countries, not only the countries who are participating for this. So therefore, we really would like to have this presentation, copies of this presentation, in the future. So then I think, so especially if I brief, actually, now, the Sri Lanka has actually has come to a very special point that the government, the present government has decided to actually eradicate agrochemicals from the country. So they have imposed a complete ban on agrochemicals. So then that has become a real challenge for social organizations, the farmers, the scientists, including and also the general public. So the thing is that, usually, so the situations that we have experienced in Sri Lanka are social organizations, farmers, general publics, and minority of the scientists always are in one side actually. So that is to promote ecological agriculture, to escape from this contaminated food and the land degradation, environmental issues. And the government, agrochemical sector, and actually the scientists, a significant number of scientists, and also even the politician, the opposition is on the other side. But this time, now government has now come to our side. Now the thing is that unfortunately, now the agrochemical companies, the scientists actually colluding with them, and opposition political parties are on the other side. Now the thing is that even though the scientists, the group of scientists actually colluding with agrochemical companies are not a significant number, but they are much louder than the scientists actually who are dedicated to ecological agriculture. So this is the actual situation we are in. So therefore, actually, people, general public is also now a bit very skeptical about this technology, because the scientists who are very loud and colluding with agrochemicals actually spread some wrong information about the disaster of famines. So unexpected, the food crisis, famines. So the poverty, the building up of poverty among the farmers, these type of things. So I think so you two may be two of the experts actually to give some your ideas and advice to handle this situation. Yeah. And I think the forum is open for you to contribute your knowledge and experience. It as actually Sri Lankan government is now actually is a kind of in some places the government is struggling, especially to deal with the scientists. Yes, please.
I'll go in first, Peter.
No, you go ahead. Let's keep the same order. Go ahead.
Professor Yapa, even though it is difficult, I think this is a great opportunity for Sri Lanka. This is, I think it's an incredible opportunity. And this is something that happened in Cuba when overnight they had no access to chemical fertilizers. So it will be very interesting to learn from their experience and the kind of changes that happened, the kind of changes that government made. Because you see, in our case, we are doing a gradual approach. So therefore, because we had already built a great social organization of women, so nothing can be done by government alone. It has to be done by people. It has to be done by organizations, NGOs, scientists. It's a whole society. So in my opinion, there is a really a great opportunity, and the entire science is fully behind what your government is saying, that you don't need agrochemicals. And I think that's what Peter and my presentation shows. And really, because if you don't use agrochemicals, you're not poisoning the soil, you're not poisoning your water, you're not poisoning yourself. In terms of implementation, I think there are a number of things that can be done. I think Sri Lanka, if I'm not mistaken, the number of farmers may be around 2 million farmers. So, and one of the, I think, so the social capital in Sri Lanka, the cooperative system, the farmers organizations, women's organizations, all of them have to be geared up, and there has to be a very quick way of capacitating them towards agroecology. For instance, what we did in Andhra Pradesh, we got more than 150, 200 young agriculture graduates. They were trained for 4 years in chemical agriculture. But when I recruited them, we did campus recruitment. I recruited them. I told them, you have to become a farmer first. Before you become a farmer, you will not preach to anybody. You learn from farmers. You do farming yourself. Then you can actually become a trainer, a scientist. So even if 1,000 young Sri Lankans can come to Andhra Pradesh, we can convert them into trainers in one season. So the situation is different. I'm saying we have to think of multiple ways of doing it. We can crash this. So we have now reached about 1 million farmers and farm workers. It has taken us a long time, but I realize there's a tipping point. So we have crossed 10% of our, farmers. So we reach a tipping point. And in the case of Sri Lanka, we have to really think out of the box. And I'm really open to consultations with the government of Sri Lanka. I really salute your government for taking this decision. And it's up to all of you to really see, makes it a success. Then Sri Lanka becomes an example for other countries. I can tell the Indian government, look, Sri Lanka has done it, we can also do it. So you should help us to become a model for our country. So sometimes this kind of decisions really give you no choice. Now you don't have a choice. You have to do it in a very different way. And it is difficult, but I believe the cause is so important. And given the fact that there is a realization in Sri Lanka that we should not poison ourselves through all these chemicals, so that that spiritual sense that we should not poison our water, poison our air, poison our soil, poison our bodies. So I think there's a fantastic moment in Sri Lanka. That much I can say. Now it's up to all of you, the social organizations, the government, now which way it goes. But we have to think out of the box. The typical ways of doing will not work. So we have to pull in all the social organizations, government organizations, your politicians who are in favor of this. So it has to become a force and go to the people, tell them it is possible. Definitely it is possible. And I can assure you the knowledge that we have gained over the last 5-6 years, we can actually reduce the learning curve for any country. So you don't have to waste that much time. Incidentally, I can send 1,000 trainers to you, vice versa. While we build the capacity of Sri Lankans, we can send 1,000 people to you. I have some 10,000 trainers. I have a vast army of trainers. So I don't know how many villages are there. If you want, I can send one person to every village. So let us think out of box. If Sri Lankan government is interested, we are ready to have this, but it has to be out of the box. Because just as your government decided overnight to do this, so we have to find, to me, it's an incredible opportunity. I'm an eternal optimist, and I believe that if Sri Lanka shows the way, it will help other countries, who are thinking of whether we do it like this, do it like that. But, overnight your government decided, okay, no more poison. So, and it's shocking that people think that, poison also has to be removed slowly. I would believe that poison needs to be removed immediately. So, okay, because the poison has gone into our minds. Poison has gone into our minds, our DNA. Otherwise, we are not able to see nectar. We are seeing it through the lens of poison. So, to me, it's an incredible opportunity, but we have to act in a very different way, in a very disruptive way. It cannot be done in a similar plodding way. Let us take 20 years to do it. No, it won't work. It's a great moment in your country. I would say I wish I was in Sri Lanka so that I can be part of this work. But it's an incredible opportunity. I'll stop here.
Okay. So so I can see a question actually, so you both can answer. So actually, some people so the farmers actually are now, they are very skeptical continuing with this ecological farming with hybrid or high yielding modern seeds. So therefore, now they actually are in a desperation to find traditional and resistant and resilient varieties. The thing is that actually we have forgotten the importance of all these traditional seeds, these resistant varieties. And I think now we are now in a situation that so we can't find these seeds. So that is one thing. Another thing is that we may need large quantities of inputs at this time, because this change is sudden. As you said that we have a lot to learn from Cuba. I don't know. So your advice, please.
No, I agree very much with everything that Vijay said. I also salute the government of Sri Lanka. I think it's a tremendous opportunity. And I think, yes, it's definitely important to look to Andhra Pradesh for some public policy measures, but also look to Cuba. Cuba, the cutoff of all agrochemicals was caused by the United States as an external economic blockade, but the effect was essentially the same. And I would say that over the first 10 years after Cuba no longer had access to those chemicals, the government tried to just use its top-down extension system to now transfer agroecological practices. And it was only moderately successful until the farmer organization adopted the farmer-to-farmer methodology at the level of cooperatives and at the level of villages, organized by the farmer organization, that then all of a sudden the national transition really started to happen. And so what I'm saying, and I think the women's organization that Vijay talked about also in Andhra Pradesh is another example. The one way or another, everybody will find a solution, but whether it takes 10 years or 20 years or 5 years to learn how to farm without those chemicals will depend on whether or not they're horizontal social processes of knowledge exchange and seed exchange, that recovering and exchanging local seeds. You cannot get enough seeds on a national level ever, but on a local level, through local agreements and seed saving and exchanges, you can. So it's better to develop local autonomy in seeds. And when in this kind of a situation, the government obviously has to change its policies. Cuba has very good policies in favor of agroecology also that can be studied, but the actual change in mentality of the government bureaucrats, as Vijay said, the Ministry of Agriculture, technical staff and extension agents, even though Cuba has been agroecological for 25 years, they still think they're in the Green Revolution. I mean, like the Ministry of Agriculture got lost along the way. It didn't have a Vijay Kumar as vice minister. So what I'm trying to say is that it's great that the government bans it. That's maybe the best possible public policy, is to ban the import. Then when the government creates policies, many of them won't work unless they support farmer organizations, farmer co-ops, farmer associations to strengthen themselves as organizational fabric at the community and territory level, with the capacity then to really implement these kind of horizontal methodologies, which is what really makes this transition take off. So the government, instead of designing how you're going to farm in each area of Sri Lanka from some office in Colombo, no, the government should be supporting the peasant and farmer organizations to develop their capacity and their ability to create these horizontal networks. And that's the fastest way to get to a large number of families who've gone through the transition. Over.
Okay. Yeah.
Once, Professor Yapa,
Yeah.
the question on the seeds, my suggestion is we didn't tell our farmers to change the seeds overnight. We said, okay, whatever you have, let us go ahead with natural farming. I can assure you that our farmers didn't face any penalty, but slowly they want to move into indigenous seeds. So it's not a compulsory condition. Whatever seeds you have, once you do the microbial coating of these seeds, and what science is saying now, it's very interesting that science, there are very recent developments that a seed, a seed which comes through natural farming, the seed itself carries a core microbiome inside it. So therefore, you have through natural farming, one generation, you will have good seeds. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is, yeah.
Yes, I agree. You have to use the seeds you have on hand, but at the same time start a process to rediscover and multiply the traditional varieties.
That's right. Yes. Great. So some more things are, yeah, I think so. The people in Sri Lanka actually didn't have a chance, especially the students in the agriculture sector, especially in the universities, actually didn't have a chance to learn actually these ecological agriculture techniques. So actually, I myself have tried my best alone, actually, without the help of others, to introduce these subjects. So the thing is now we are actually decades behind India and other countries with this technology. So therefore, people, even the leading scientists, are skeptical with this idea. So therefore, if you too, I know you are experts in the world with this subject. So if you too can actually advise how to tackle this, especially, I do believe that we need a massive development and the massive changes in our course curriculum, especially in agriculture. So the thing is that sorry to say that Sri Lankan graduates with the first class PhDs are addicted to chemical agriculture. So that is the situation here. They don't believe anything other than that. So please advise us, please.
That's the situation everywhere, Professor Yapa. It's not just Sri Lanka. So the solution I had was I did campus recruitment of the same people. They had learned chemical agriculture, but I asked them to do farming. So once they did one season farming, they realized that many things that they learned, they had to discard, and they had to learn from farmers, learn from the soil, learn from actually getting their hands, feet dirty. So if your professors, lecturers, research scholars, students, they do farming, they do through and learn from farmers themselves. So 1 year is enough. They'll all change.
Okay, so great.
No courses. First, do your farming.
So,
it's a bit drastic, but I told my agriculture graduate, I have got some postgraduates also. So I told them, you will not teach any farmer till you take a crop. You will learn from farmer. You will keep your mouth shut. And after you take the crop, then okay, you can become a trainer, you can become a researcher. So without farming in these methods, you cannot, no amount of course curriculum will change. Now I'm asking these people who have gone through it for 2 years, 3 years. Now I'm saying, now you design the course. Because the mindset has to change. So they have to believe that this is possible and this is the best way. So without that change, you cannot see it from the lens of a chemical agriculture and then think about natural farming. It's difficult. So it has to be a combination of campesino and non-campesino.
so, so Peter, if you have anything to say.
Well, of course, I think Vijay and I agree on 99% of everything. So I would just say from the chauvinistic via campesina point of view, that the local process should be led by the campesino, by the peasant organizations, but the government needs to be supportive. I noticed somebody in the chat said that if the government doesn't have good supportive policies, and what they didn't say, but what I would add, and farmer organizations are not able to develop these processes, then it could be to end up being an attack on small farmers to ban all the chemicals, and then there's no capacity to do something different. That's what somebody said that in the chat. So I think it's imperative. First, the farmer organization needs to think about how to build these village level, community level, cooperative level processes, and how to pressure the government so that the government doesn't leave a ban without supportive policies for the transition. It's like you need both things. But we've seen in many countries, farmer organizations can do it even despite governments. But of course, it's better if we have friends in government like Vijay who can direct favorable policies to ease this transition over.
So the thing is actually the danger here we have in Sri Lanka, what I see is, so we are almost 100% dependent on imported inputs for this, high input industrial agriculture. So the thing is, so if there is anything goes, beyond our control, let's say, so unfortunately, the trade barriers, world wars, pandemic situations, and the sanctions, coming against Sri Lanka, I think the Sri Lanka will have no chance of actually facing this for more than 2 weeks. I think so. We are 100% dependent on external input. So I think Peter and Vijay, we are in a real danger, I think. So I think this cannot be actually addressed and addressed by even the leading scientists. I don't know, I can't understand. So how can we convince this actually the danger that we are in? At least with the staple food, rice. We can't produce rice without the ship coming from maybe from Middle East or China with urea. So that is the issue. So that is a real danger.
I think, Professor Yapa, I think first thing that we have to understand is that in the regenerative agriculture, in natural farming, we are not even using organic inputs. The cow dung and those things are basically inoculums. They are not fertilizers. So we are saying in natural farming, the biological processes enable nutrients to be made available to the plant. And that is the entire basis of the root exudation. So that is how the microbes are fixing by making bioavailable nitrogen, phosphorus. See, you have about 78,000 metric tons of nitrogen over every hectare of land. 78% of air is nitrogen. So why does it have to come from a ship when the microbes can do it free of cost? So that is the basis of our confidence that we don't have to depend on anybody. Every farmer, every village is a sovereign thing. They don't have to depend on any external inputs. And that is why this is even more important for Sri Lanka, because then you don't have to depend on others. Every village can produce its inputs and raise the crops that they want to raise. So this basic realization that we are not substituting chemical inputs with organic inputs. No. We are saying that let us trigger that mechanism by which the plants, soil, microbes, air, sunlight. So this synergistic relationship is kick-started. We are not asking for any organic inputs we put there. So every farmer is sovereign, every village is sovereign, every district, every country is sovereign. And this is the beauty of regenerative agriculture or natural farming or agroecology. It's
Yes,
not
I think
substitution of one input for another input.
exactly. I think so. I think what you mean by ecological agriculture. So the best, the most important thing that we have to focus is this is a kind of the system that we create, which is self-sustaining. Am I
Yes.
correct, Peter? Self-sustaining. So we don't have to depend on others and the inputs from outside. So that is great. Actually, that will lead us to actually achieve the food independence at least with the staple food, rice. So Peter, any last word from you?
Well, I agree completely with it, with the last two comments that that we have to think about how to break dependency and become sovereign or autonomous at the level of the village or community or territory. And I think we can do that with agroecology. For example, if we think about composting, to do composting at an industrial level requires a transportation network that doesn't exist to move that kind of bulk and weight around. When it's decentralized to the level of the family can do it, but sometimes it's more efficient at the level of their cooperative. So for example, the favorable policies that the Peasant organization in Cuba won was, well, we want to do village level composting, village level biofertilizer preparation, village level alternative forage for livestock. So create government programs that support that instead of subsidizing pesticides. As Vijay said, you cut out the pesticide subsidies, the fertilizer subsidies, that's a lot of money, and even a little bit of that money to support these collective processes. So it's coming from the state, but it's actually to make them more autonomous of the state in the future and more able to run their own affairs, an initial investment to get things going at that level. So I think it's definitely possible, and it's an important challenge, and we'll all be very interested to see what happens and very happy to lend a hand in any way that we can. Thank you.
So I think the time has come for us to wrap up the presentation. So actually, I have not enough words to thank you both. So especially I have met you both in somewhere in late 2009 or something. So somewhere. So the thing is, at this time, this crucial stage, so coming forward to help us with your advice, and this is a great opportunity for the Sri Lankan scientists actually. So mainly, to think out of the box. That is more, one of the so the word actually as described very cleverly by clearly by Vijay. To think out of the box. Actually, that is what our scientists actually they have to change their mindsets actually to stay away from this the chemical addiction. So thank you so much for both of you, and in the near future, so I think we might need your help and advice. So especially as you said that we will have to implement a program to actually transfer the technology, the parallel transformation of the technology. So farmer organizations and the women's groups, the cooperatives will have a major role to play. I think so mainly the empowerment of the farmers will be the focus. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yappa. Thank you to Monlar. What a great opportunity to connect with friends in Sri Lanka. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
It's a privilege.